Yeah, I was just gonna mention the date.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just information.
My bow's been in the case for 3 years.
That's whatever. 3 years.
And I got 2 Matthews. Yeah.
But I'll mention these then.
I got a helium and a monster.
And then under,
My buddy just got a crossbow. He swears by it now. That's all he's gonna hunt with now.
One thing is you only got one shot. You know, because you reloading them just forget it goes in your soul.
Yeah, he wasn't a big fan of it until he shot one. He practiced with it. He's like, you know, because they made it legal now to use a crossbow.
It's legal.
Yeah. So he's on a crossbow now. That's all he uses.
Let's call the order to the Plan Commission for October 18th, 2018. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Cox?
Here.
Mr. Crompton?
Here.
Ms. Fiding?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Orlando?
Here.
Mr. Rosanellis?
Here.
Mr. Kella?
Here.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the first order of business is approval of the minutes of the September 20th Plan Commission meeting.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Cox?
Aye.
Mr. Crompton?
Aye.
Ms. Fiding?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mr. Orlando?
Aye.
Mr. Rosanellis?
Aye.
Mr. Kella?
Aye.
Okay, next item on the agenda is citizens to be heard on agenda items. This section is for anyone wanting to speak regarding items listed on the agenda, except for items listed under public hearing. Anyone speaking on an agenda item is entitled to speak for a maximum of 4 minutes. It is not a question and answer period, and staff and the Plan Commission do not generally respond to general public comments. Okay, seeing none. Our next item is old business, public hearing. We have no items. Old business, no public hearing. We have no items. And then under new business, public hearing, there is a request to move up on the agenda 2 items. The first being A21-18, and that is the 7th amendment to the annexation agreement for the Audubon Country Club. As well as M3-18, which is an amendment to the master development plan for the Audubon Country Club. The applicant in this matter is Audubon Realty, LLC. They are also the owner. Requested action is amendment to an annexation agreement and the master development plan to make changes to the go-kart track. Existing zoning is I-1 light industrial. Location is 3795 Center Point Way. Size of the subject property is approximately 300 acres. Undeveloped land currently. Surrounding land use and zoning is as noted. Under site history, the Audubon Country Club has petitioned for many requests and amendments heard and approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals, Plan Commission, and the City Council for their development. Under special information, the owners of the Audubon Country Club would like to expand the facilities and existing go-kart track and open it up to the public during certain hours. In order to accomplish this goal, an amendment to the annexation agreement and master development plan is required. The proposed expansion would increase the half-mile track an additional 0.2 acres. In addition to the expansion, evening hours, and that would be after 5:30 p.m., will be established to allow non-club members to utilize the track. In order to allow the public to access the go-kart track parking area, but no other parts of the country club, an existing curb cut on Center Point Way will be opened up and established for public access only. In addition, the existing go-kart track parking area will be expanded. New lighting will be installed and new berming and landscaping will be adjusted along Center Point Way. It should be noted that the lighting will be turned off at 10 p.m. when the go-kart track closes. All applicable terms and conditions from the original and amended annexation agreements, master development plans, and special use permits will continue to apply. The proposed amendment conforms to existing and proposed land use within the development and surrounding vicinity, and that concludes the staff report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. May we have the petitioner, please, on this? Give your name and address.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Michael Hanson, attorney, Joliet on behalf of Audubon Country Club. I'd like to introduce Mark Basso and Tim O'Donnell, who are two of our founders, along with Hugh Loftus, our engineer. We think this is an exciting proposition with our go-kart track and making it into a public area. So we think this is a petition that commands approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
One clarification, you said 2 acres, is that 2 acres or 0.2 miles?
0.2 acres.
Miles.
Oh, I'm sorry, 0.2 miles, sorry.
Right.
Sorry.
That's it. Any questions from the audience? Okay, hearing none. A motion's in order for A-21-18 and M.3-18.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Crompton?
Aye.
Ms. Whiting?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mr. Orlando?
Aye.
Mr. Rosanellis?
Aye.
Mr. Cox?
Aye.
Mr. Kellogg?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, there was one other request to move up an item, and that is V718. That's the vacation of a 66-foot by 214-foot portion of Benton Street. The applicant in this matter is Maple Warehouse. The owner is Glassman Real Estate Investments. Requested action is vacation of a portion of a public right-of-way to expand private property as private property to be used as a private driveway. Location is Benton Street, north of 220 Maple Street. The impacted area would be approximately 0.32 acres. Existing land use is public right-of-way. Surrounding land use and zoning is as noted. Under site history, in October 2008, the City Council approved Ordinance 16331, vacating portions of Benton Street, Page Avenue, and Winberg Street adjacent to 220 Maple Street. Special information, the adjacent property owner of 220 Maple Street and 300 Maple Street has been utilizing the existing Benton Street right-of-way as a private drive for some time. In order to secure their property and officially make it a part of their existing holdings, they are requesting vacation approval. Portions of Benton Street, Page Avenue, and Winberg Street were previously vacated by the same owner in 2008 to expand the owner's private property at that time. The vacated right-of-way would be used for a private driveway access to the site. The area could be fenced in the future, but existing utilities within the right-of-way would prohibit any major construction. The city's Public Works and Utilities Department has reviewed this request and requires an easement to be retained over the entire portion of the vacated right-of-way in order to protect an existing storm sewer. As of the writing of the staff report, there has been no opposition from any affected utility companies to this particular vacation request. And that concludes the staff report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. May we have the petitioner, please, on this?
Michael Hanson, attorney, Joliet, for the applicant, Glassman Real Estate. Everybody here may recognize this property as the Berlinski scrap property on the east side of Joliet. So I believe we are in favor and recommend approval of the petition.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Any questions from the audience?
People asked to be moved up. I told them.
Go ahead, sir. Give your name and address, please.
Terrace, I grew up in that area. You know, we the people, we're second-class citizens amongst a lot of you people, right? You take and want to build something, you vacate a right-of-way that the taxpayers have paid for that since the beginning. We've seen that when Brandon Road got vacated by Center Point, when Rowell Avenue got vacated by the track. Where do the people go if there's an accident? Oh, find your own way. A few weeks ago, there was an accident on I-80 that closed it down. It usually takes me no more than 20 minutes to go from my house in unincorporated Elwood to St. Ray's to pick up the kids.
You understand this is just an alley between two buildings. It's not a.
It's Benton Street, isn't it?
No, it's an alley.
It's still, it's a way to get around if the street's blocked off. Oh,
No, this one is part of their property surrounds us. There's no public access anywhere on this.
it's still, it was an alley for a reason when it came out. It was an easement.
But then they're buying it from the city, so they're not getting it for free.
I know that, but the city, the city takes money from everybody. It's just like when these warehouses go up and they say, well, they're gonna take care of the improvements, but we're gonna give them so many years of no taxes. Who does all that fall on? That's not like they took care of improvements on the property at their own expense. They took care of them improvements at the expense of the taxpayer, because when you're not collecting taxes, your taxpayer is paying for them improvements. I don't know. I didn't go to college and push a pencil or anything. I don't wear a suit. I worked out there for a living, and I work construction, so I know how it works. Hey, when it all gets down to it, we've got the same representative for Love's, for all the Center Point, basically, and for the track. And anytime he comes up there, it must be a done deal, because I've never seen anything turned down by the city council. And they all turn a blind eye. They all act like, something comes in this year and goes out the other one. Because you never listen to us. The last time we were here, we had over probably close to 100 people. You had security people in here. Why? Because you knew it was a done deal, and you didn't want any problems, and then they had armed security outside. Now, to me, that's like saying, all of you people out there, you don't count. Now, somebody's got to be on the take. Is it time to get rid of the city council and the mayor too? Maybe. I hear on that Love's thing, he was only going to vote on a tie vote, but he decided majority, I'll vote on it. It's totally unacceptable.
Okay. Time's up. Thank you.
Yeah, here's one thing though.
Time's up.
I just want to say, you're giving everybody 4 minutes, but they get the rest of their lives to deal with it.
That's right. It's the rules.
Sir, it sounds like you have an issue with something that's coming up a little bit later on the agenda.
Maybe
we could talk about that at that point, but this is specifically on the.
Sounds good, thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome to come up again during that.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay, hearing none. A motion is in order for V-7-18.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Whiting?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mr. Orlando?
Aye.
Mr. Roosevelt?
Aye.
Mr. Cox?
Aye.
Mr. Crompton?
Aye.
Mr. Kella?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. We did have one other request to move an item up, and that is P12-18, the preliminary plat of Silverleaf Unit 4 re-subdivision. The applicant in this matter is D.R. Horton. They are the contract purchaser developer. Their request is for approval of a re-subdivision to allow construction of a new townhouse model. Existing zoning is R4, multifamily residential. They are at Springleaf Drive. And, the size of the affected parcel is 2.14 acres. The existing land use is undeveloped lots in partially built townhouse development. Surrounding land use and zoning is as noted. Under site history, the subject property has an extensive approval history, which is shown in the table in the staff report beginning in 2003 with an annexation and with various final plat, recording plat, and PUD approvals through 2005. Under special information, the existing subdivision recorded in November 2004 includes 96 townhouse lots located in 24 4-unit structures. A 4-acre wet bottom detention pond, common open space, and a 0.6-acre park site were included in the original plat. Only 32 of the 96 townhouse lots were constructed. For the remaining 64 lots, the petitioner, D.R. Horton, is proposing a re-subdivision in order to add a new for-sale townhouse model within the Silverleaf Unit 4 subdivision. The re-subdivision will amend the lots and lot lines within the previously approved planned unit development in order to accommodate D.R. Horton's new model. The building footprint is expanding to essentially accommodate this new model. The new proposed model will resemble the existing townhouses in look, size, and material. All other previous conditions from the original approved annexation agreement and the PUD will remain consistent with the new development, including the park site, common open space, and detention pond, which will be maintained by the existing homeowners association. Planning and public works staff have requested revisions to the preliminary plat in order for it to more clearly show how it meets the city's requirements. Staff have not asked the petitioner to make changes to the lot lines or submitted elevations. Therefore, the attached plat and elevations fully represent the subject matter of the petition. Revisions to the plat will need to be approved by staff prior to city council review. And that concludes the staff report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. May we have the petitioner on this, please? Please give your name and address, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Steve Bauer. I'm an attorney with Meltzer, Patel, and Stell, here this afternoon on behalf of D.R. Horton, Inc. Midwest as the contract purchaser of the 64 townhome lots that are the subject of this request. As Mr. Jackson noted, there are a total of 96 townhome lots in this Unit 4 of the Silverleaf subdivision. D.R. Horton is the contract purchaser of 2/3 or 64 of the 96 lots in the subdivision. I'm joined today by Chip Kruzmark of D.R. Horton, who is also available to answer any questions you may have. Generally speaking, Mr. Jackson has identified all the pertinent details relevant to this request. As you can imagine, this proposal represents a significant investment by D.R. Horton in both the Silverleaf subdivision and the city as a whole to complete a project that has now been approved for a period of 15 years. Importantly, there is no proposed increase in the density or number of units for this phase. This is merely a re-subdivision to accommodate D.R. Horton's specific product, which is very comparable to the existing 32 townhomes that are there today with respect to both building elevation and overall square footage. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to entertain any questions you may have, and I would respectfully request your favorable consideration of this request.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
Is there any, is the square footage on these units comparable to the previous ones?
They are correct.
Excuse me, sir. Are the covenants going to be in place the same as the old covenants that the previous townhouses were built?
That's correct.
They're going to continue on?
D.R. Horton is merely acquiring the 64 townhome lots. It's not modifying the covenants in any respect. It doesn't have the ability to do that as the contract purchaser.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Okay, hearing none. The motions in order for P-12-18.
Make a motion.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mr. Orlando?
Aye.
Mr. Rosanellis?
Aye.
Mr. Cox?
Aye.
Mr. Crompton?
Aye.
Ms. Bynum?
Aye.
Mr. Kella?
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we will return to the agenda as printed. And our next item would be FP 7-18, and that is the final plat of Ashford Place Unit 2 subdivision. The applicant in this matter is Turnstone Group. They are the asset manager. The owner is REO Funding Solutions. Requested action, approval of the final plat of Ashford Place Unit 2 to allow future development of 123 single-family residential lots and one outlot. Location is Legacy Point Boulevard and Caton Farm Road. The size of the parcel is 40.48 acres. Existing land use, vacant and undeveloped. Surrounding land use and zoning is as noted. Under site history, the subject site, which is known as the Drum Farm, was annexed and zoned R2 single-family residential in May of 1991. The preliminary plat of the 187-acre Drum Estates subdivision was approved in October of 2004 for 542 lots. The original developer submitted a plan to develop the northern portion of the subdivision as Ashford Place and the southern half as Whisper Glen. In April 2005, the city approved the recording plat of Whisper Glen Unit 1 for 176 single-family residential lots. In December 2005, the city approved the recording plat of Ashford Place Subdivision Unit 1 for 98 single-family residential lots. In May 2008, the city approved the recording plat for Ashford Place Unit 1A for 13 lots. In December 2017, the city approved the revised preliminary plat for Ashford Place Unit 2 and Whisper Glen Unit 2 subdivisions for the future build-out of the remaining 241 single-family residential lots, of which 123 of these lots will be built in the Ashford Place subdivision. Under special information, Turnstone Group is the asset manager for the property owner, REO Funding Solutions. Turnstone Group, the applicant, seeks approval of a final plat for the remaining 123 lots and one outlot in the Ashford Place subdivision, which will be platted as Ashford Place Unit 2. The future builders are unknown at this time. The proposed subdivision layout has not changed since the December 2017 preliminary plat approval. The site has R2 zoning, and that's single-family zoning, which allows a minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet. The typical lot size is 60 feet by 125 feet, or 7,500 square feet. The average lot size is 9,574 square feet. Lots along Legacy Point Boulevard and all lots on both sides of Birmingham Place north of Denali Ridge Drive are larger, with lot widths ranging from 73 to 86 feet wide. Model floor plans and elevations were approved with the original Drum Estates preliminary plan submittal and further refined by the Ashford Place Unit 1 recording plat. The following building requirements will be enforced for the final plat of Ashford Place Unit 2 subdivision. Houses ranging from 1,550 square feet to 3,341 square feet of living area. Model descriptions are attached to this report. Houses will be 2 stories in height. All roof pitches will be at least 6'12", with gables having 8'12" roof pitches. Lots along Legacy Point Boulevard and all lots on both sides of Birmingham Place north of Denali Ridge Drive are considered key lots and will offer larger models. The specifics there are at living areas of 2,300 square feet or more, 8'12" roof pitches on the main body, rear elevations with bump out, which is at least 2 feet deep, a minimum of 2 windows on the second floor rear elevation with shutters and grills on each. The developer will need to seek additional approvals from the city should any substantial changes be requested for elevations or landscaping. The subdivision will adhere to previously approved landscaping plans, anti-monotony ordinance, and minimum brick requirements, which specifies a minimum of 50% of the front elevations of 1/2 of the detached single-family dwelling units shall be comprised of brick or stone. The original developer already constructed the 8-foot-high cedar shadow box fence along the property line between the subject site and the Williamsburg subdivision to the east, which was a requirement with the previous subdivision approvals for this site. The fence is owned and maintained by the Ashford Place Homeowners Association. Previous subdivision approvals also required that the developer impose a covenant stipulating the use of a 6-foot tall cedar shadow box fence at the common boundary line of Cumberland subdivision, and that's along the west boundary. It shall be recognized that installation of a fence is an optional feature. Future units in the Ashford Place Unit 2 subdivision will be required to join the existing Ashford Place Homeowners Association. In 2004, the Plainfield Park District agreed to accept the conveyance of 2 park sites in the Ashford Place Whisper Glen subdivision area, as well as a 10-foot linear trail through Lot 331 to provide a future pedestrian connection to the public park in Cumberland. The balance of the park contribution was a cash in lieu amount of over $207,000 to be split between the Whisper Glen and Ashford Place subdivisions. To date, Whisper Glen has paid its requirement, leaving an amount of $103,986.81 to be paid by Ashford Place. The park in the Whisper Glen subdivision has since been constructed. The Ashford Place Park and 10-foot linear trail through Lot 331 have not been constructed, but will occur with the future build-out of Ashford Place. The Park District is still in agreement with the site contribution, cash contribution, and site improvements as outlined in the original arrangement. The plat conforms to the subdivision regulations as reviewed by Planning and Public Works. The applicant has paid the engineering review fee. The original developer previously paid the city sewer and water tap-on fees for this site. The site is subject to the Plainfield School District 202 school contribution fees and the city's development impact fee. District 202 has indicated that their schools are presently capable of accommodating potential enrollment emanating from this development. And that concludes the staff report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. May we have the petition on this, please?
Good afternoon, Thomas Carroll with Geotech Incorporated, 1207 Cedarwood Drive, Crest Hill, on behalf of the applicant. Staff report was pretty thorough, so entertain any questions.
Any questions from the commission?
Yes, I have one. Houses over there range from 1,500 square feet, 1,550 to 3,300. Are there houses over there now with that same square footage?
I would believe so. I think that was the conditions in the original approval, the original preliminary plat that was approved in the previous units that were approved.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is because are you going to accept the same covenant that was proposed when they first started Ashford Place?
Yes, they'd have to build to the same product line as what was approved, and they'll become part of the homeowners association for Ashford Place.
Okay, well, the reason why I'm asking too is because last month or the month before, Whispering Glen, we had a little problem with a new developer coming in. He wanted to build houses with a lower square footage, and the residents were upset about that. So I just want to make sure there's no conflict with the residents that are there now already.
Right. No, at this time, I'm not aware of any variations from the approved house sizes.
Is there a specification on how many 1,500 square foot houses there are compared to how many are built in there already? Will it stay commensurate?
I don't believe there's any requirements. I don't think there's any conditions on the number of 1,500 square foot houses that were built.
What's the percentage of the houses that are there now that are small like that?
That I don't know. I do not know.
Any other questions from the commission?
Yeah, is there any way you can get us more information about this before we vote on it?
Yeah, I mean, we could take a look at that and see what it is. I'm not sure, Kendall, if there was any requirements, on the previous, unit 1 that was built. I'm not sure the number of homes that were built at the smaller footprint. We'd have to go back through and look through all of those homes and see which ones were built.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, if I may. These are ranges that are sort of, I guess, built into the approval process. There's really no way that we would know beforehand what the allocation would be per size, because it's all pretty much market driven. It would probably take us a couple of days to figure out what's out there on the ground now, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I'd
So
like to find out.
Well, And also too, it's gonna be based on lot size too.
Correct.
Be based on the lot size, as Kendall said, the market, so it's gonna vary.
Right.
So the original, original approvals gave a range of homes, that could be built. I don't think there was any specific requirements on the number of homes, within each footprint.
Have you been involved with any homeowners meetings out there in reference to this?
We have not.
I see you don't have a builder lined up. Did you have one lined up, or what happened?
No, there's not a builder lined up at this time. Our client is the property owner and the asset manager. So their goal is to get the project entitled, get the final plats approved, get the final engineering approved, and then they can take that product out to the market and talk to builders. So.
Hello, does the city have any requirements of who they come up with a builder to make sure that they can?
No. Are you asking that we kind of, the city kind of prescribes who they should? No, we don't get involved at that level.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I was wondering if I could make a motion that we table this until Geotech gives us a little bit more information on this.
I don't think it's called for on this because it's the lot size, and once this builder comes in and they look at the covenants at that time, then they'll determine which lots will have which size homes on it. I mean, right now, we're just approving the plat, not the number of houses.
Okay.
This plat, the plat is in conformance with the preliminary plat that was previously approved by the city. So there's no variations or deviations from the plats that were previously
So I
approved.
think he's okay there.
Okay.
Any other questions for the commission? Any from the audience? Okay, hearing none. A motion is in order for FP-7-18.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Orlando?
Nay.
Mr. Rosanellis?
Aye.
Mr. Cox?
Aye.
Mr. Crompton?
Aye.
Ms. Fiding?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mr. Kellogg?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda is FP 818. And that is the final plat of Whisper Glen Unit 2 subdivision. The owner in this, the applicant in this matter is Turnstone Group. They are the asset manager. Owner is REO Funding Solutions. Requested action is approval of the final plat of Whisper Glen Unit 2 to allow future development of 118 single-family residential lots located at Legacy Point Boulevard and Theodore Street. The size is 32.74 acres. Existing land use is vacant, undeveloped land. Surrounding land use and zoning is as noted. Under site history, the subject site, Jerome Farm, was annexed and zoned R2 in May 1991. There was a preliminary plat approved in 2004. The northern portion of the subdivision was approved as Ashford Place. The southern portion is Whisper Glen. In April 2005, there was a recording plat for Whisper Glen Unit 1 approved. In December 2005, there was approval of a recording plat for Ashford Place Unit 1. In May of 2008, a recording plat for Ashford Place Unit 1A was approved. In December 2017, there was approval of a revised preliminary plat for Ashford Place Unit 2 and Whisper Glen Unit 2. The remaining 241 single-family residential lots, of which 118 of these lots will be built in the Whisper Glen subdivision. Under special information, Turnstone Group is the asset manager for the property owner, REO Funding Solutions. The applicant seeks approval of the final plat for the remaining 118 lots in the Whisper Glen subdivision, which will be platted as Whisper Glen Unit 2. Again, builders are unknown at this time. The proposed subdivision layout has not changed since the December 2017 preliminary plat approval, with the exception of Flowers Drive, which is now known as Overland Drive. The site has R2 single-family zoning. Minimum lot size allowed is 7,500 square feet, with a minimum lot width of 60 feet. The minimum lot size in Unit 2 is 7,875 square feet with a minimum width of 63 feet. The average lot size is 9,304 square feet. Lots along Legacy Point Boulevard are larger, with lot widths ranging from 73 feet to 86 feet wide. Model floor plans and elevations were approved with the original Drum Estates preliminary plan submittal, further refined with the Whisper Glen Subdivision Unit 1 recording plat. The building requirements will be enforced for the final plat of Whisper Glen Unit 2 subdivision. And again, that would be a house size range from 1,550 square feet to 3,341 square feet of living area. Houses are 2 stories in height, roof pitches at least 612 with gables at 812. Again, lots along Legacy Point Boulevard are considered key lots, and they will offer larger models on those lots, 2,300 square feet or more, 812 roof pitches, minimum 2 foot bump out at the rear, minimum 2 windows on the second floor, rear elevations with grills and shutters on each. The original builder of Whisper Glen, and that was Phoenix Builders, exceeded the city's minimum masonry requirements, which in 2004 required at least 50% of homes to have a minimum of 25% of the front facade comprised of brick or stone. The builder constructed all homes with at least partial brick or stone. At a minimum, all garages had brick or stone facades, and stone address blocks were placed on the front facades. Staff would suggest, as a condition of approval, a requirement that all future buildings have a minimum of 25% of the front facade comprised of either brick or stone. The developer will need to seek additional approvals from the city should any substantial changes be requested for elevations, landscaping, etc. The subdivision will adhere to previously approved landscaping plans and anti-monotony ordinance. Previous subdivision approvals also required that the developer impose a covenant stipulating the use of a 6-foot tall cedar shadow box fence at the common boundary line of the Cumberland subdivision. And again, that's the west boundary. It shall be recognized that installation of a fence is an optional feature. Future units in this subdivision will be required to join the existing Whisper Glen Homeowners Association. In 2004, the Plainfield Park District agreed to accept the conveyance of 2 park sites, as well as the 10-foot linear trail. The Park District is still in agreement with the site contribution, cash contribution, and site improvements as outlined in the original arrangement. The plat conforms to the subdivision regulations as reviewed by Planning and Public Works. The applicant has paid the engineering review fee. Original developer previously paid the city water and sewer tap-on fees. The site is subject to Plainfield School District 202 site contribution fees and the city's development impact fee. The school district has indicated that their schools are presently capable of accommodating potential enrollment coming from this development. And that concludes the staff report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. May we have the petitioner on this?
And, Thomas Carroll with Geotech on behalf of the applicant. Again, the staff report was thorough. The only thing I would add is the applicant does not have any objections to the 2 conditions that were added.
Okay, so you're happy with those?
Yes.
Okay, great. Any questions from the commission? Got a question?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
This is going, well, yeah, excuse me.
It's the same.
This is going to be the same thing as the previous one, right?
Correct.
As a previous, okay, all right.
Any questions from the audience?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Jeff Sturr, 6612 Mountain Ridge Pass, Whisper Glen subdivision. Mr. Chairman, members of the Plan Commission, and good afternoon. I'm here representing many of my fellow homeowners in Whisper Glen, and I urge you to concur with the recommendations of the planning staff in order to maintain the character of our neighborhood and continue the honor that the promises that the city made to the families that invested their lives in Whisper Glen. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, hearing none, a motion is in order for FP-8-18.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Roosevelt.
Aye.
Mr. Cox.
Aye.
Mr. Crompton.
Aye.
Ms. Fiding.
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Mr. Orlando.
Aye.
Mr. Kella.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. The next item on the agenda is A-22-18, and that is the annexation of 2.72 acres located north of 921 East Washington Street and classification to I-1 light industrial zoning. The applicant in this matter is the city of Joliet, who is the owner of the property. Requested action, annexation, classification to I-1, which is light industrial zoning, to consolidate with other City of Joliet property for a stream bank stabilization project. The size of the parcel is 2.72 acres, currently vacant. Surrounding land use and zoning is as noted. We could find no previous cases under site history. Under special information, the City of Joliet is requesting to annex the parcel of land north of the city's water and sewer service center at 921 East Washington Street. The city purchased this parcel, which contains part of Hickory Creek, in June 2018 in order to complete the Washington Street Stream Bank Stabilization Project. The project, completed in July 2018, was done in order to stabilize a 400-foot section of Hickory Creek Stream Bank to reduce the sediment and nutrient load to the Hickory Creek watershed. The project helps the city meet its MS4 permit requirements for stormwater management. Once annexed, this parcel will be consolidated with 921 East Washington Street. Annexation of this parcel will not result in any water or sewer connections. And I believe that concludes the staff report, Mr. Chairman. And we, staff, can represent the request.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Any questions from the audience? Okay, hearing none. Then a motion is in order for A-22-18.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Roosevelt.
Aye.
Mr. Cox.
Aye.
Mr. Crompton.
Aye.
Ms. Fiding.
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Mr. Orlando.
Aye.
Mr. Kella.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. Next item on the agenda is Z-11-18 and M-4-18. And that is the reclassification of approximately 331 acres of undeveloped property located south of Millsdale Road along Bridge, Knoll, and Bush Roads from R1B, and that's single-family residential zoning, and R4, multi-family residential zoning, to I1, light industrial zoning, and approval of a development agreement with PNI Joliet LLC and Route 53 Joliet Incorporated. Applicants in this matter, PNI Joliet LLC and Route 53 Joliet Incorporated. They are the owners. Requested action, approval of a zoning reclassification and of a development agreement to maximize value and use of the property as industrial. Existing zoning is R1B, again, that's single-family residential, and R4, multifamily residential. The proposed zoning is I1, light industrial. Location, south of Millsdale Road along Bridge Street, Knoll Road, and Bush Road. Again, the size of the parcel is 331 plus acres. Land is currently undeveloped. To the north is residential R1B in unincorporated Will County. To the south is residential and agricultural unincorporated Will County. To the east is industrial I1 and B3, and the B3 designation is general business Joliet. To the west is industrial IT zoning, and that is the intermodal zoning. Under site history, we have the annexation classification to R1B and R4 zoning and an annexation agreement being approved by the City Council in 2005. Under special information, the petitioners are requesting approval of a development agreement and zoning classification to I1 in order to maximize the value and use of the 331 acres as a future industrial development. There is no known development interest in the site at this time. The previously approved annexation agreement allows the developer to request a reclassification of the property without an amendment to the annexation agreement and without the request requiring a supermajority vote at the city council. The proposed I-1 zoning request is contrary to the Southside Comprehensive Plan, which was adopted by ordinance in 2007. The Southside Comprehensive Plan designated this area as residential with a small area of commercial at the northeast corner. The Smith Farm, which is adjacent to the east, was annexed and classified to I-1 light industrial in December 2017. The Smith property was also designated as residential in the Southside Comp Plan. It is possible that the Smith Farm could be included with this subject site to make up a larger industrial park footprint. It could also be possible that the site could be accessed by a Union Pacific Railroad spur. Truck and employee access to the site will be limited to Breen Road only. The proposed development agreement is in draft form. Highlights of that agreement include the following. Development as a PUD. The owner agrees that development of the property depicted in the zoning plat shall be accomplished as a planned unit development under the City of Joliet ordinance. The next criteria is building design standards. All building structures or alterations hereafter constructed or made on the property shall conform to the non-residential design standards. Landscaping. The owner shall comply with the landscape requirements established by the city at the time the property is developed. Pavement of yard areas. All outdoor areas of the property used for vehicular access, display of inventory, material storage, parking, outdoor storage, and similar uses shall be paved in accordance with city requirements. And a preliminary concept plan. The preliminary concept plan is a general depiction of the potential development of the property. The approval of the preliminary concept plan is not intended and does not constitute a variance, waiver, or modification of any zoning, subdivision, water, or sanitary sewer, land use, or construction requirements of the city. Responsibility for improvements. Breen Road, if proposed to be constructed by the owner, Breen Road west of Illinois Route 53 shall be a private street for the industrial park. The private street shall be constructed with storm sewer, curb and gutter, and adequate pavement based on a traffic impact study. This private street shall be separate from the residential streets north and south of this development. The owner at the time of the request for the PUD approval for any part of the development shall provide a traffic impact study for this development. Illinois Route 53, a traffic signal shall be required for the intersection of Breen Road and Illinois Route 53. City of Joliet major street lights shall be provided along the west side of Illinois Route 53 adjacent to this development. If the 130-acre Smith property is included in the development of this property, then the street lights shall be spaced at 180 feet. At the time of development, the owner shall construct, and there shall be a continuation of the hiking biking path installed within a hiking biking trail easement just west of the west right-of-way line of Illinois Route 53 for the full length of this development. Bridge Road, if proposed to be constructed by the owner shall at the time of development close off Bridge Road north of the development and south of Millsdale Road at a point just south of Gladys Avenue. Reconstruction of Bridge Road north of Knoll Road adjacent to the Smith property and cul-de-sac at the point where the industrial development encompasses both east and west sides of Bridge Road. ComEd streetlights shall be installed on this section of the road. Knoll Road and Bush Road. The sections of Bush Road and Knoll Road adjacent to the business park shall be reconstructed as 31-foot back-to-back roadways. ComEd streetlights shall be installed along Knoll Road and Bush Road accordingly. Storm detention. Provide stormwater detention for this development per the City of Joliet stormwater detention ordinances. All public improvements will be required as part of any future development. A 75-foot wide landscape berm and buffer will be required where the development abuts adjacent residential. A city water line is located at the southeast corner of Route 53 in Breen. A city sanitary sewer line is located on Bridge Street and is additionally serviced by the Millsdale Road lift station. Sewer and water connection fees, the East Side Sewer Treatment Plant surcharge, and the development impact fee will be required. Detachment fees for Elwood Fire District and Manhattan Elwood Library District have been paid as part of the previous annexations. It should also be noted that a community meeting was scheduled and held on October 16th. And that concludes the staff report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. May we have the petitioner on this, please?
Yes, sir. My name is Mike Martin. I'm the attorney for the applicant. I'm at 15 West Jefferson, Joliet. I also have with me Rod Tonelli as a planner to address you tonight, and I have Tom Small, who is a representative of P&I. I actually was the attorney back in 2005 when we annexed and zoned this property. It was part of a larger assemblage of property. We bought approximately 900 acres in the area, and this is what's left undeveloped and what we had planned to develop as a residential subdivision. And we had planned that since 2005. A lot of things have changed since 2005, and I think you're all aware of them. On our western boundary, Center Point went in. So we now have immediately across from this area, the intermodal facility. We did develop to the north. We did develop Cedar Creek north of Millsdale Road, and currently there are a lot of unsold lots up there ready for a builder to come by and buy, and no builder has showed up to buy any of those lots. Quite simply, after Center Point, Joliet Logistics Park on the east side of Route 53 went in and was approved and was rezoned to I-1. A lot of that was residential property. And Hillwood came along, and then they built their building, which is up there now and sitting a 1 million square foot warehouse. After that, in December, I believe, of last year, the city annexed and rezoned the Smith property, which is shown, if you could put our concept plan maybe back up, Kendall. It's the lighter blue area. It's 134 acres along Route 53. That was annexed and zoned to I-1. So, and then on the other side of the street, the Cavalia property came along and asked to have their zoning changed to 14-acre property to I-1. So right now, the access road to this undeveloped property is Breen Road to Route 53, and that is already has four corners of that intersection, 3 of which are zoned I-1 and 1 is zoned B3. We cannot, I thought, okay, is this, the lot blanks are too expensive with the city fees and the product, because we agreed to every stipulation the city wanted as a product, brick, stone, whatever needed to be in the housing product. It's simply that no buyers are here. No builder since 2006 is willing to take on this property from us, even if we develop the lots, even if we subordinate the lot to the builder and let them build their product and try to sell it, and we collect on the lot if there's a buyer. So when the Smith property was zoned I-1, we're sitting there with this acreage, which we have sat on since 2005 and can't sell. And it's zoned residential. There is no market in this area for residential, and I believe the city council believed that the Smith property, the area had changed, and they zoned that residential to I-1. So we said, well, what do we do? We decided, and we went to the Union Pacific Railroad and said, well, could we maybe get a spur into this property? And the Union Pacific Railroad says that's a possibility. Now, that's an expensive possibility, but we could then take our property, combine it with the Smith property, market it so that there'd be a single user perhaps for the entire development, which will bring employment, jobs, and increased revenue to the city for the real estate taxes. So our thought was, well, let's do that. Let's ask the city if, okay, can we rezone our property to I-1? That's our request. We want to rezone that to I-1. The annexation agreement allowed us to do that in this case, and that's what we're asking you to do. We also proposed a development agreement. And the development agreement that we proposed is to pick up on many of the items that were negotiated and became an issue during the Smith annexation. We wanted to continue the berm that's on the Smith annexation property, the 75-foot wide berm. We also have no access from our property whatsoever to any of the surrounding streets, Knoll, Bush, Bridge. A bridge was already in the Smith annexation agreement to be cul-de-sac enclosed at the south end. And what we're agreeing is to cul-de-sac it also at the north end, so there's nothing into Gladdale Acres or north to the existing residential that would be Cedar Creek that was developed and basically hasn't sold since 2006. We did sell lots up in Cedar Creek to a related company, Bruno Pasquinelli, who ran the building company, and his company went bankrupt, and the bank took over in foreclosure a lot of those lots. None of those lots have sold. Whatever the entity is that purchased those out of foreclosure from the bank, those lots all sit vacant today. So what we did with the concept plan is we tried to pick up exactly what was there before. If you look on the concept plan, which Mr. Tonelli will explain a little bit further, there's a lot of green to the north, there's a lot of blue to the north. That's all wetland and floodplain. So any development that would go in here, and we do not have a buyer, we're just trying to get it entitled so that we can market it and try to market it together with the Smith property to bring in a buyer who will develop it. But there's a large, at least 60-acre area of floodplain and wetland setting us back from any property to the north. Now, the development agreement that's proposed would allow, when someone comes in and says, look, I want to develop this, to address what, if any, screening would go there to the north. Because quite frankly, until you know what you're going to put on the property, it's hard to screen it. To the south, it was easy to pick up what was already there for the Smith property. To the north, nothing's foreclosed from you doing what you want to do when it comes in, and when it comes in as a planned unit development, and there's a planned unit development agreement where the city can impose additional conditions based on what actually goes on the property. Beyond that, the development agreement allows for the prevailing wage provisions as would be required, and it also allows and requires a traffic study. It's hard to talk about traffic at this point because we don't know what the user is and we don't know what the traffic will be that will be generated. But any portion of this, and I think Kendall told you that would be developed, would require not only a PUD agreement, but a traffic study for you to come back and say, well, look, this is the impact. We've agreed that we will contribute to the intersection, the signalization of Breen Road and Route 53, which is going to be our only access. But if a traffic study comes back and says, well, you need to make these other improvements and these other improvements, well, then that's going to be the issue at the time that developer or that user or that end user comes in and says, I want to build this. And so it makes a lot more sense to do it in that fashion, and that's why we're proposing this. Regarding the other roads, we've agreed to improve the adjoining roads, even though we're not going to have access to them, Bush Road and Knoll Road, as Wendell told you, and there is no waiver of fees. There's no request to vary any of the ordinances that the city has regarding subdivision or any other ordinances that would be proposed. That is quite simply what we're seeking. We're seeking rezoning to I-1 so that this property no longer sits vacant, that we can do something with it. We can try to bring in somebody who will actually use it and develop it, and hopefully develop it in conjunction with the Smith property. So that's what, and then the development agreement puts you in the position of having complete control of whatever development goes into that site. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Any questions from the commission?
Okay.
I got a question.
Mr. Tenelli, okay, yes, sir.
I know this is all a concept, but what size are those buildings that you have on there? Because they don't look very big.
No, they're not.
I understand
they're
that.
not,
I know
and
it's
Ron could do
concept.
that because he drew the plan, but go ahead.
Thanks, Mike. Rod Tonelli, Rudiger Tonelli and Associates. So I guess I'll start with your question, Commissioner Cox. So the buildings on there range from around 125,000 square feet. I think the largest one was right around 500,000 square feet, but most of them are in the 125 to 150 range. What's different about this property than most of the other industrial warehouse properties in the area is given its configuration, given the wetlands and floodplain, there's a couple of pipelines that run through there and some fiber optic cable that runs through there as well. It really doesn't accommodate the larger warehouse that we've seen in other developments. And that's not a bad thing. We think that's actually a good thing because there is market for smaller spaces and they tend to be higher value add industrial uses that can go into those types of buildings. And that's not something we as a community overall have built really into the marketplace here because most of the sites have been for just the larger scale warehouses. That in conjunction with the opportunity for the rail spur, and again, we've had preliminary conversations with Union Pacific just to make sure that the feasibility is there, that if we do have ultimately a user that wants a rail spur, that can be brought in. Those are two advantages this site has that many don't, and what it lends itself to is a higher value use than some other parks and certainly what it is today as vacant, undevelopable residential land. I want to maybe just go back. I know Mr. Martin went through the history of what's happened in the area, and you've heard that before in prior presentations. I won't reiterate all of it, but I do want to comment. He outlined a number of zoning changes that have happened, right, that have resulted in this property now having intermodal terminal zoning on our west, I-1 zoning on our east, and the other trend of zoning changes that have happened. When we look at that from an urban planning perspective, ultimately, the question that's being asked of us as a planner is what's the highest and best use of the property? And the highest and best use at this point in time is not for the zoning that's out there for residential, as we've talked already about why that can't be developed. The highest and best use is industrial. And that's based on that trend that's already occurred. We have all those adjoining industrial zonings, we have that trend of industrial development, we have that trend of industrial zoning occurring around us. It's also based on the asset that this property has in terms of access to the rail and access to Route 53. So, the highest and best use, we believe, is clearly industrial at this point. And we think that adds the most value and gives the best value opportunity to this property and enhances the value of the other industrial property, such as the Smith property adjoining to us. As was discussed in the staff report and in Mr. Martin's comment, this concept plan that you're looking at and have questions on is just that, only a concept. We do not have a developer. Just want to reiterate, we do not have a buyer for this. The intention is just to entitle it for this zoning so that we can then bring it to market and attract a developer to it. When we prepared this concept plan, because we know you have questions and we know our neighbors and residents around us have questions, it's there to help demonstrate one scenario, okay? So don't get particular about any building or orientation of a building. But as we work through that, and Mr. Martin and Kendall both touched on these items, things emerge that regardless of how it gets developed, we know we need to manage. One was buffering and landscaping. So we carried over through all of this property the same buffering and landscaping the city had required of the Smith property when it annexed and zoned that. And that is a 75-foot landscape buffer around the perimeter with burning and landscaping that will be required. We also, in the development of this concept plan, looked at how we would manage, traffic that would come into an industrial development. Mr. Martin talked about the commitments our agreement already makes into the signal, as well as making sure that we don't have traffic from the industrial development that can get into any of the residential streets. The the concept plan as well as how the development agreement treats those roads ensures that all of the traffic from this industrial development makes its way onto Route 53 and not into any of the residential neighborhoods. Mr. Martin pointed out to you the amount of green space and blue space that's in the plan. Obviously, we will have to develop, or when someone develops this, the stormwater management side and provide stormwater management. We've agreed to that in the development agreement. And there's floodplain and wetland areas that cannot be developed and will just be maintained as open space. Those provide some natural buffer. I know there was a question in our local neighborhood meeting from residents who live in the Cedar Creek neighborhood, the reserve to the north, as to why there's not a berm shown on their boundary. That's where we have that 360 feet of existing floodplain that serves as that spatial buffer. Doesn't mean there can't be a berm south of that or a fence south of that at such time as there's a development plan that you can look at and require that of the developer. But again, we have the ability here to utilize that open space and floodplain to actually create a natural spatial buffer that can't be altered. So with that, available for any additional questions?
Question. Were you at that meeting on October 16th?
I was.
And how did it go with placating the residents of the area?
No, there was no placating. There was about 40 or so residents that were in attendance, and we made a presentation like we did tonight of what our proposal was. Their response was, you know, with great concern and very much negative.
Any other questions from the commission? No?
Not yet.
Okay.
Are you, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, you have the residents speak?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Okay, any questions from the residents? Please give your name and address, please.
Yeah, the terrorist 19544 Sharp Road. I moved out there in 1973. At that time, that was all farmland. Now, Pasquinelli investors came in there, and I fault the city a lot because they didn't do their homework. Pasquinelli never paid for half the stuff he did in Naperville way back before them, but it's all about the cash flow coming in. The city okayed and the planning commission okayed a 20-year plan when they took over. Now, what makes you think that now it's not even 20 years now, oh, we're not getting our money from this? But do you offer the homeowners tax abatement like you do the industrial? No. Here's another street that you're going to vacate. Right? Now, they're talking about putting traffic lights at Green and 53, but there's supposed to be some coming up at Millsdale and 53 that they bought up a long time ago, right? Nothing ever happened. Emerald Drive was supposed to have some, and nothing ever happened. Well, we're going to wait till, you know, Speedway comes in there. Speedway was supposed to be getting built already. Hasn't happened. You know what we put up with? In the mornings, we've got traffic control out there blocking lanes off to get people into the warehouse over there that's supposed to be coming off of Laraway Road. That's what the Planning Commission told them a couple of years ago, and what do? But they put 2 squad cars out there, right? To make sure that people go around the barricades. People that are coming north trying to get into this place, they think, okay, we got policemen out there. We don't have to stop, so everybody's got to slam on their brakes, and the policemen are sitting in there nice and warm. Now, when Joliet approved Pasquinelli out there, they were supposed to have a road to take them from their subdivision all the way out to 53. Oh, they went bankrupt. Well, the bank still owns it. Nothing ever happens. So what happens? Oh, they come down Sharp Road. There's no sidewalks over there. The people onto the center of the road. We had a babysitter pushing a stroller with a baby in it. A woman come by there flying, hit her brakes, cussed that girl out saying, you don't have any legal right to be out here on this road. No, that was the city's responsibility to put a road out there for them to, but being it was a 20-year plan. And let me tell you something, Mr. Jackson here has been here for a long time. Every time I come up here and complain, let me have your number and I'll get back with you. That's been since, I think, '07. You know how many times, tell them how many times you called me. None. We've got problems with Joliet crossings out there. Joliet, for some reason, I don't know if the other towns do, but they'll annex big acreage. When those retention ponds come in there, they step away from them. And if the developer and the owners of the property don't take care of them, right now, we've got a retention pond that drains out into a field. And I've told everybody about it. I told everybody about how there was never any finals out there, and they keep on saying they went bankrupt. It's still the city's responsibility to do the finals out there. Are you in agreement with me?
Yeah.
Well, why hasn't it been done? But you know what I hear all the time? Well, that was before my time. Does that mean that the last planning commission and the last city councils, they were all, I don't know, not knowing what the responsibilities were supposed to be for the city? Now, when we're talking about they're going to vacate this road, that was brought up years ago, where they wanted to build 2 warehouses on the west side of 53 and Breen Road, and then take and vacate Bridge Street so they have access to the tracks. Maybe that was before your time. We don't need them out there. Joliet doesn't have traffic control out there. Today, there was 1 truck enforcement out there. Now, Centerpoint built a truck turnaround in Millsdale west of the tracks, right? Oh, Mr. Hanson says, the truck's coming east. When they get there, they'll see that truck turnaround point, and they'll turn around and go back. Hey, if I've already passed Brandon Road, and I know I've got a 99.9% chance there's not going to be a policeman out there, I'm going to shoot for it, right? Now, they don't have traffic patrols out there for the people that run the 4-way stops out there, and this is at every shift, every day. And you can call up and complain, oh, we don't have anybody to send out there. Then you don't have the legal right. If you can't police it, don't go out there. Because we're the ones getting hurt by it. Not you people, because I'll guarantee you, none of you live out there, out of sight, out of mind, and you turn a blind eye to us. We're like second-class citizens out there. And we shouldn't be. We pay our taxes. We don't get tax abatements. I guarantee you, if they go ahead with these warehouses, if the warehouse will get a tax abatement, we'll still be paying the taxes out there, but they're the ones getting all the benefits. Right or wrong? Tell me, you guys are out here.
Mr. Gutierrez, your time's up, so let somebody else
No,
talk.
my time's up, but we're the ones got to deal with it for the rest of our lives when we live out there.
Let some other people
Thank
talk
you.
now, please. Thank you.
Hello, I'm David DiDesiderio. I live at 19528 West Knoll Road. Does light industry allow railroad cars? I know when they approved the Smith for light industry, I don't remember anybody talking about railroad cars and railroad spurs. I mean, that's heavy stuff, railroad stuff. So does that have to be changed if they want to put a railroad spur in? I don't know, I'm asking.
Well, the spur they're showing doesn't go on the Smith property, so.
The one I saw showed a spur, and then it showed a detention pond on the south side of the berm they want to put in, just the model is showing. That's the other thing that kind of scares me, that
Yeah, this one doesn't show anything on the south side of Smith property other than a retention pond.
okay, and the retention pond is on the south side of the berm.
That I don't, there's no berm or anything on the side. I couldn't tell you.
The thing that bothers me is if we get a heavy rain and that detention pond overruns, it's going to flood everybody's property that's on the real close to that detention pond. I'd like to see if they're going to get, if there's nothing we can do to stop it, I'd like to see the detention pond on either side of the berm so we don't get the flood of water. We've already had problems with waters.
Okay.
And right now they talk about the lands not being developed for homeless, but isn't their property still being farmed out there? People are making a living off some of that land out there, maybe quite a bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is, as you know right now, there's no railroad spur going to be on the Smith property?
At least from their design, doesn't look like it.
Can I show you what I got and you can tell me this is good or bad?
Of course, at the time of development, they gotta come forward with a plan unit development, then we'll see what kind of.
All right, let's back up a little bit then. Does light industry include railroad spurs?
It can, yes.
It can, okay, so, all right, thank you for your time.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Michelle Peterson, 207 West Spencer in Elwood, Jackson Township. A couple questions come to mind that I'd like to ask the developer, if I could. I'm wondering how many houses and people and residential that this is going to negatively impact. I see a lot of red there. Are those the houses and the neighborhoods there? Do we know how many people that's going to impact? It is time for questions, correct?
Yes.
Ma'am, there's no developer here.
Oh.
There's not a developer here, there's just attorney
People
and
who own the property, can I ask them?
You
how
have to
many-
ask the attorney there, Mr. Martin. He can
Mr.
probably
Martin,
answer
can you
your
tell me how many people and homes and children are going to be negatively impacted around the perimeter of this development? Do you have a number?
Well, I'm not assuming there's a negative impact, so if you want to ask.
Well, then could you please just tell me how many?
No, okay, if I may answer. You gotta be kidding me. You know, we're continuing the burn that was prior to the Smith property. How many people were in Gladdale Acres? I never counted the lots. How many people are south of Mill Road? I've never counted the lots.
So you don't know, is that your answer?
My answer is I've never counted the lots. You know, and, you know, what their impact would be would depend on what the end user is. So that's all I can answer right now. That's a question I can't answer.
Are you part of the homeowners out there?
I am not.
Okay. Well, they should probably know how many residences are out there.
I also heard Mr. Martin talk about, Center Point, and Center Point isn't even built out, and I'm wondering really, is this really viable or maybe necessary in this area with so much industrial already there, and this is a residential area at this time? That's another question I had.
We definitely believe it's necessary to change the zone.
Could you speak her?
Oh, yeah, do you want to step aside so he can so they can hear him?
Yeah, we definitely believe it's necessary to change the zoning, otherwise we wouldn't be here asking for it. I think since 2006, in the Cedar Creek division, north of Millsdale Road in the subdivision that's been developed, there's a minimum of 65 single-family lots since 2006 that have been unsold. There's a minimum of 61 duplex lots that have been unsold since that time. No builder will buy or develop those. And that does not include about probably 70-some lots that the bank took over in foreclosure. So as far as there being a market for residential lots, the ones that are developed can't sell. This is undeveloped raw land. There's no buildings on it. It's farming. To develop this as a residential subdivision when you can't sell since 2006, the developed lots makes absolutely no sense. So yes, I believe it's necessary.
Is this my?
That one, yeah, both of them.
You say it's necessary now, but when I was sitting there, you did say a lot of words like think and try. We're going to try to do it. We think it might work. So I don't know that that's really a sure thing from what you said. Is there any, do you know anything about the water supply there? And was there any water study or flooding studies at this point to rezone this land?
No, stormwater detention will be whatever the end user proposes and whatever the city would approve. What I can say is that under the annexation agreements, we were required to build the Millsdale Road lift station. We did that. We were required to build the Millsdale Road force main. We did that. We were required to build the Route 53 gravity sewer. We did that. And we were required to donate to a fire station site. We did that. We made all financial donations we were required to make under the annexation agreements, and we have the lots left that are developed that can't sell, and we have the lot, and we have this property left that, you know, at least at this point, it doesn't look like developing it as residential is ever gonna sell.
And I guess my last question is to the council. Is this really a viable option for this area? I highly think you should consider all the residential people that live around there and what that could possibly do to that area with that being brought in. I think it would be a negative impact. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike McKay, 19329 Eaton Avenue in Elwood. I'm asking that you vote in opposition to rezoning this property. First of all, it was mentioned earlier, there's already a bunch of property that's already zoned I-1 around there that's not even developed. We also have multiple warehouses in the area. I mean, I have a 1 million square foot warehouse across the street from my house I look at every day that's been sitting vacant for a year already. It was also brought up that Center Point's not even at capacity yet, so we don't even know what the full scope of this is gonna be. Why do we need to rezone more land when we don't even know what we have yet? On top of the fact that we already have issues with I-80. I mean, how many times has it been closed down? How many bad accidents we had the past couple weeks? I-55, I-53. I think we need to work on the infrastructure first before we go to rezone more land. There was talk of a stoplight at Breen Road coming out of this possible development. My question is, if they're gonna run enough traffic out of there to need a stoplight for the semis, what are the residents to the north and the south supposed to do? How are we supposed to get out of our subdivisions? Another possible issue, they're talking about putting a rail spur in. What about noise from rail cars? We can already hear the rail cars and the equipment over at Center Point, and that's a half a mile away. So now this is gonna be a quarter mile behind our houses, and we have to listen to this. That's all I have at this time. I'm just asking that you think hard about this and the residents around this area before you make a decision. Thank you.
Gerald Hellis, 19301 Quail Court, Elwood. My neighbor here's frustration, it's real, okay, for you guys that live, you guys probably live to the north. What we're living with is thousands of trucks, okay, and you might say, well, you know, thousands, is it really a thousand? I was talking to the Elwood police chief. I would imagine the man's not a liar. He told me there was 14,700 semis that went across that spur, that Walter Strawn, before it was closed. Center Point told him there was only gonna be 7,000 trucks that were gonna go across that. Center Point's not built out yet, but yet there's 14,500 or 14,700 trucks. So what my concern is with this proposal is if the fence is open to access the rail yard, once these semi drivers know that they can get into the rail yard, they're not gonna use Laraway Road anymore. They're gonna come down to Breen to get in. Am I right? I mean, does it make sense to any of you guys? Do you, you know, you could do the lawyer talked about a traffic study. The traffic study's not gonna show that. Trucks are not like, truck drivers are not something that you can control. They go where they want to. Mr. Hanson, the lawyer, said trucks aren't gonna use the township roads. Well, Mr. Hanson, they're using the township roads. We live out there, okay? Are they making mistakes? Maybe. I mean, we're all human. You get cut everybody some slack, okay? And another thing that we're seeing often is semis are doing U-turns on 53. They get turned around and they do U-turns on 53, and I just don't think that that's safe. And I asked a police officer back here, and he really didn't know. Do any of you guys know, is that legal to do? Do any of you guys know this? But you guys are planning our future. So do you see the frustration? People are gonna die, okay? People are gonna die. So what these semi-drivers are gonna do, like I said, is once they figure out that they can get into that rail yard without going down Laraway Road, we're gonna have a lot of trucks. A real lot. Okay? And when the railroad said, well, you know, we want to put the spur in, somebody here on the commission said, well, you can take Brandon Road out. Why didn't you guys say to the railroad, build us another road? You guys got money. Move the road over. Then you can have that property. And then we would have that road to use to access if something's going on 53. We could have used Brandon Road in Joliet. Because most of us shop in Joliet. Our doctors are there. Let's just give you guys something to think about. Okay? These truck drivers are they're gonna go in the easiest, best way. And we're the ones that are dealing with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Ann Baskerville. I'm a conservation organizer for the Illinois chapter of the Sierra Club. The Sierra Club sees several problems with any plan that would put more trucks on 53. The first issue is human health. The Sierra Club has many concerns about the environmental and public health impacts of diesel pollution. Diesel particulates are dangerous to human health. This summer, the Sierra Club and volunteers, we did some air monitoring along Laraway 53 and 80. And we found that the air was unhealthy for all people on 10 out of 54 days, and unhealthy for sensitive groups on 30 out of 54 days. Sensitive groups are, the children, anyone with asthma or any sort of respiratory problem. And the reason I think, that issue of the air quality is important is because this won't just impact the people that live right near it. If those trucks get on 53, it's going to add to the trucks and pollution we're seeing around 53 and 80. So one issue would be like the kids at Laraway School. Now the new school is operating, but all those kids need to cross 53 to get to school. All the kids in Elwood, they have to take 53 to get to school. I know several parents have just told me privately that often their children are late coming from Elwood because of the traffic issues. This Saturday, the Joliet Park District is going to do the grand opening of the new facility at Knoll Park. Good land use planning was mentioned, and the Sierra Club does see that there is potential for the Humboldt Road Bridge and for the widening of I-80. And we do think that that needs to be part of a comprehensive land use and transportation plan. The land use plan is critically important. The Humboldt Road Bridge should only be built as a piece of a larger plan that will protect the environment, human health, and the quality of life for all residents. And as part of land use planning, I think we need to think about how adding more trucks to 53 would impact both Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery and Medewan Tallgrass Prairie. On a personal level, my dad, he's a volunteer with the American Legion. They do some of the burial ceremonies, and people come to the cemetery from all over, and if they do a Google map search or MapQuest or whatever, it's probably going to have them. A lot of people get off on 80 at 53 and then head down to the cemetery. So I just ask that you really consider how adding more trucks to 53 are going to impact the environment, all the people here, and then those two national treasures that we have in our area. And the Sierra Club just really thinks before any more land is zoned for industrial, we need a comprehensive land use and transportation plan that really, puts public health, safety, the environment, and just quality of life for everyone first. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone? Come on up, please.
Danielle Montanis of 2801 Oak Rail Drive. I'm actually in New Lenox. I recently moved there from the west side of Joliet, though. I remember coming to a meeting when they had the park referendum, what was that, 4 years ago? And it was really weird being there and meeting with people from the east side of Joliet and the west side of Joliet. And I obviously was very yes, gung-ho, go parks, great. There's an old man there who said, well, we were sitting there talking before, he said, they spend all this money on the west side. They focus all of their time, they, as in the board, focus everything on the west side, making it pretty, making it more development, more shops, more everything, so it's pretty. So this is where everybody goes. But the east side is just garbage. And it continues to get more and more and more just disgusting because nobody spends any time on it. Fast forward a couple of years and I moved just off of Briggs Street, on the south end of Briggs Street. I take Briggs every day. Oh my gosh, this guy was right. He wasn't just some kind of crazy conspiracy guy that, you know, whatever, old man, I understand, but I see it now. And I don't understand. At what point in time are we going to stop and say, hey, you know what, I get it. For those that never see the area, that this makes sense. We want more money. But you know what, farmland is a good use of land as well. I know they say undeveloped, but farmland is developed. It's creating food. It's creating the jobs for the farmers. It's creating the food for the animals of which we eat. It's creating trade. These are things that are also necessary. And doing this, I mean, nobody can beat the Sierra people. They just know what they're doing. But like, really, this is, I'm pregnant, I have a baby on the way, I've got my own children, that we go behind the semis and they're, you know, we're breathing it in, they're like, Mom, it stinks again. And I have to turn on the car so that it's recycling our own air, which is not really something you're supposed to do when you're in the middle of country. That's something you do in the city. And here we're doing it because we can't breathe driving to 80. And then 80 itself, I'm not even going to get into that because honestly, if you don't know the problems with 80, then you're going around blindfolded. You know, this is just more things that we don't need. Please, really, really consider that people live here as well as work here. And as far as the work, you've already heard, how many warehouses are empty right now and not selling either? We need to catch up to what we have before we build more. Please. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Any more comments?
Diane Sewing, 107 Woodbine Drive, Village of Elwood, and I'm the Jackson Township Supervisor as well. I have a degree in economics and I work in the financial industry. And to me, some of this is with these proposed industrial zoning, the supply and demand is totally getting off kilter. We have so many that are empty, built empty, and not going anywhere. It's almost going to be like the housing bubble where now we're going to have all these concrete structures not at capacity, you know, not, what is the word I'm looking for? Being used, thank you. So that's one point I'd like to make. I do want to thank Mr. Orlando for your concern with the first case in asking about the neighbors and the size of the homes for that development that was there. I think that's always something to take into consideration as the neighbors that anything new would affect, whether this would continue to be residential or not. So I appreciate that. And then also, as we saw in the first and the second case, there's development going on. So why is it not going on here? Maybe they need a new marketing director. You know, that could be, he even said it himself, after Center Point was built, nobody's buying. So the solution is to add more. I don't find that chain of thought very effective. Let's see. There's Breen Road to the east of 53. There's not a Breen Road to the west. This is all in theory that this road will be developed if the buyer develops it. But that has to go through IDOT because that would be an entrance off of 53. IDOT would have to approve a stoplight. And the Village of Elwood has requested a stoplight at their main entrance at Mississippi in 53 and have been turned down multiple times. And that's residential, and you know, it's necessary, and there's been some deadly accidents there, but this whole theory of let's rezone because this will happen, you know, we can get you this and we can sell to the developer this bill of goods, and I feel like it is a bill of goods. Let me see if I have anything else. And I think someone else brought up this point with, while it's not been sold, no property has been sold to build on, the land is still being farmed. So there's some money being passed there. You're not just sitting on undeveloped property. There's some profit being had there. And I'm sure, no, I'm not sure. I would guesstimate that when this property was bought to develop years back, there was the anticipated idea of how much this developer could make from all of these homes being sold, being built and sold. Well, the plan obviously fell through, probably with the housing market in 2007, 2008. So, but at that time, he probably got a steal of a deal from that farmer or whomever sold that. So I just don't have compassion for a business to say, oh, I want to make a little extra money, so I'm going to change the zoning to industrial as opposed to residential, which what it was. Why not put it back to agriculture and see if a farmer will buy it for something? That might please the residents, the neighbors. If anybody's driven past there, I don't know what you do to prepare for these meetings, if you do drive the properties or not. The residences are quite close to this and extremely affected. And yes, it's a larger scope, but would you put a warehouse at Glenwood and Essington on that piece of property that's sitting there vacant? I doubt it. It's got residents on every side. And yes, Center Point's on the other side of the railroad track, but it's still farther. It's not built up yet. And that was zoned there, and that's got NICOR over there and everything like that. So those are just a few points, and I would respectfully request that you do not approve this annexation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Good evening. My name is Matt Robbins. I live at 24757 South Sycamore Street in Elwood. I'm also a Jackson Township trustee. I just have a couple of questions and points. Is there a staff recommendation right now to change the zoning?
No, there isn't.
We're not making a recommendation kind of right now? I'm just curious. Because on the Smith Farm, you guys recommended that it not be changed.
Correct, we did.
Okay, but this one we're...
Yeah, not at this point. We don't have a recommendation.
Okay. All right, because to the north, you touched on a little bit that it's unincorporated Will County, but there's a lot of that is City of Joliet residents to the north of that property.
Correct.
In Cedar Creek and up at the corner of Millsdale and Bridge Road. Those are all City of Joliet residents. Now, north of that is unincorporated in Jackson Township in Will County. I just want to make sure everybody is aware that that is. There was an agreement made between the City of Joliet and Joliet Township High School. The Joliet Township High School sued the city because they wanted to put too much industrial. They said to the west of the tracks, we would leave industrial. To the east of 53, we would make industrial. But from the east of the tracks and west of 53, we would leave residential. Because at some point, it's going to become that there's no residential. It'll all be industrial, and there'll be nobody else from Elwood feeding into Joliet Township. That was done. There was an agreement made that would be left at. In the comprehensive plan in 2007 that was drawn up, and I understand the market crash in 08, has anything been done since the master plan in 07? Has there been any changes or anything done to it?
No.
Okay, so there's been nothing changed. If we're gonna move forward with stuff like this, shouldn't that be addressed first before we all of a sudden just start going off on a whim? There is a plan that was put forth, maybe not by you folks, maybe by the folks in front of you, it had to be the folks in front of you, but there was a plan, a master plan put, you're supposed to follow that plan. And if you're not, then you're supposed to revisit it and fix it. Those are a couple of things. Another thing that someone brought up about their land, there's no residential in that area. There's a subdivision just to the south called Knoll Estates where I live. 3 homes were built last year. I understand that's not 2,200 or whatever these folks want. I get that. But 3 homes, there is residential going around in that area. It may be not as big as it could be, but there is some residential still going on. If I buy a house, real estate is a gamble. If I buy a house and the market tanks, I can't rezone it to industrial. Why are these folks getting to? So because the market tanked and they can't do anything, now they're getting to rezone it? I can't do that in my own property. Most people can't. I would bet it in any one of your neighborhoods. If you buy a house and it tanks, that's what happens. It's a gamble. Real estate in general is a gamble. I want you guys to think about the people traveling 53, the kids on the buses, the people going to Joliet. We do, like the gentleman just said, we do most of our shopping, our doctors. We want to continue to Joliet. That's why we moved a little bit further south, but we utilize Joliet to as much as we can. And it's a gauntlet at 53 and at the bridge, just at 80. That is horrible intersection. Now, that rail spur, it's a fantasy. Nobody's gonna probably pay for that. They'll just shove everything out on 53 onto the road and let it go north and don't care what happens to it. I just would really, please consider this. On the Smith farm, it was a 4-4 tie, and you guys gave a no recommendation at all. Not a yes, not a no, no recommendation. Just please think about the people down south that are your residents. There are a lot in there. Something that got brought up the other night, and they said they would berm all the way around it, and when the people come up, we can make that recommendation. A resident was very upset the other night. He lives in Country Creek to the south. There will be no berm. So 300 feet away, yeah, they're gonna put a 300 piece of open land. There's no berm. He's gonna look right at that warehouse. That's what he was upset about the other night. And I don't blame him. I wouldn't want it. And he's gonna hear that all night. See the lighting, see everything. I don't blame him for being upset about that the other night. It did not go well the other night. I was at that meeting. Residents were very upset. So I just want you to please, it wasn't just Jackson Township. Everybody in that area is Jackson Township, but it wasn't people outside of the city of Joliet. It was a lot of Joliet residents too that were very upset. So I just would like you to please consider giving a no recommendation to City Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Amy Walsh. I also live in Jackson Township in Elwood. I wasn't planning to speak, but it's been mentioned that many of us that live out that way go to Joliet for shopping and doctor's appointment. I also work in Joliet. So I wanted to point out that, we're employed by Joliet, and I have 2 students who attend Joliet Central High School. Both of them on a regular basis, not just once in a while, but on a weekly basis are late to school. And it's become such an issue that the district first period or second period, depending on whether they're freshmen or upperclassmen, just know, please let the Elwood students in. And it's because there is so much congestion and so much danger. And now that my children are at the age of driving, I have that fear as a parent of them driving down 53 within the amount of trucks. So this property would increase that danger on a road that is already impacted from the industrial in the area. I would ask you to consider your South Joliet residents, those that are City of Joliet residents that live in South Joliet. I was one of the volunteers that Ann Baskerville spoke about that did the air quality monitoring. And it was crazy driving down 53 and see something on a monitor read from particulate matter of 6 to a particulate matter of 85, driving down 53, which is, we're looking at a scale of in the green zone, in the yellow zone, in the red zone, and it's at the top of the red zone. As bad as it can be, right down your homes in the Laraway School area, residents whose backyards butt up right against that road where that particular matter is at its highest. So I would ask you please to consider your South Joliet residents. Please be a good neighbor. Consider your residents, the neighbors of yours who live in unincorporated Will County and Jackson Township and in Elwood. and do the right thing and do not approve this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, Paul Buss, Jackson Township Highway Commissioner. I believe that all the earlier speakers brought all the concerns up that are legitimate concerns, and they are a problem. We have a lot of problems down there. And all I'm gonna say is that these residents don't deserve to be treated like this, to have this put in their area right up against their houses. And we cannot take any more trucks on 53 and 80 or any place in that area. These roads are just congested. It's terrible. We can't take any more. So all I'm asking is you please give this a no vote, please.
Karen Turdick, 19325 Coyle Court, Elwood, Jackson Township. I just want to say that my husband has done the math, and there are 225 homes that will be affected within a 1 mile radius of this land. So please do the math. If there's at least, at minimum, 4 people per household, you're affecting roughly 1,000 people within a 1 mile radius of this property. And I know in my heart that you will do the right thing, because it's about time we see change from Joliet to help us out. Please, I appreciate it. Thank you.
My name's Steve Ippolito. I live at 24738 South Walnut. Just recently moved into the neighborhood in April.
Okay. I'm sorry, what town is that?
Elwood, Jackson.
Okay.
And I just recently moved into the neighborhood after a couple years ago. My son, he moved into Elwood too, on Eaton, and told me how much he enjoyed the area. So we looked around and we found a house on Walnut Street. Now, I just got through retiring from UPS after 41 years. So I know about the sound of trains hooking up and dehooking and trailers backing up to docks. It's quite noisy. But to go further, it's like the Speedway is probably 2.5, 3 miles away from my house. If I sit on the front porch, I can hear like a swarm of bees, the sound. If I sit on my back deck, I can hear the Autobahn. Same thing, like a swarm of bees. It's nothing, you know, that's too alarming. But now if you're gonna stick warehouses right in the middle of all this, and the way sound travels at night, it travels that day too, but mostly at night, if you've got any kind of traffic going on, this is gonna be very irritating. Now think of yourselves as coming home from a hard day's work, and you just wanna relax, but you can't. It's like living by an airport all the time, planes going over and over. Well, now you're gonna have trailers hooking up to, you know, to semis and in and out. You got the trains coming in and out. It's gonna be very irritating. There's no quality of life. So again, like everybody here that spoke with all their valid points, I ask you to not approve this, because it's not fair to our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, Becky Kemp Robbins, 24757 South Sycamore in Elwood. Joliet is known as a city of champions. Don't make it known as a city of warehouses. We're good neighbors. We really are down there. We want to use your park districts. We want to go to your schools. We want to go to your restaurants. Be our good neighbor. That's all we're asking. Thank you.
I've got one more thing to add.
Make it quick.
Now, oh, okay, this will be quick. Now, you're vacating Bridge Street, right? Joliet Central takes 53 down Sharp Road west and gets on Bridge Street. That's the way they service Cedar Creek. And then they continue on and they go to Knoll Road. Elwood Public School drops the kids off on Knoll Road. then continues north on Bridge to drop the kids off to Cedar Creek, because they go to Elwood. Now, you vacate this road, you're putting them in all that danger of all them trucks coming out there. That's one of the reasons that they probably take the side road, because they don't have to deal with truck traffic. Now, it's up to you guys to decide whether you want to put these kids in danger by letting them go out to 53 and have to do all the zigzags because you're vacating the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Oops.
How do you do? My name's Steve Matter. I live at 1316 Lennox Road. You guys approved the annexation of my neighborhood. And I'll give you an update so you can at least know what you've done. Property values have dropped like they said they would. New Lennox Road, the police, there is no Joliet police out there. We've got trucks that run up and down that road like it's a freeway. That's a 12-ton road. You guys haven't done a thing about it. I've talked to Hanson about what they're gonna do with the improvements, when they're gonna do the roads, how they're gonna take my front yard out. There's no answers to be had by them or anybody, even from the city. So when you do get annexed, be nervous. I mean, I think the sign they should stick out in front of Joliet when you pull in, it says, "Welcome to Joliet, to New Gary, Indiana." Because I think that's where we're heading. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's time to make a motion now for,
I have a question.
oh, I'm sorry. Right ahead.
Kendall, on reference to the railroad tracks, what is the zoning for tracks?
There's really no zoning per se for tracks. I'm not quite sure. I haven't seen a plan that shows a railroad spur. I'm not sure where that would come into the property.
There is a concept plan from Union Pacific attached to the development agreement that shows a concept of a railroad spur, and I passed it out to all the residents too, but it's just a concept. There's no agreement that there will be a spur or there won't be a spur. The idea behind the spur was it would enhance the value of our property. It would also enhance the value of the Smith property and make it all attractive to perhaps one user who would come in with an idea and a concept for the development of the entire area. And quite frankly, it's not just a matter of waiting out the real estate market on residential. It's been the rezonings, the Center Point, Joliet Logistics, all along Route 53, the Hillwood project, and then when the Smith property, the 134 acres right next to what we're supposed to build the residences on and the undeveloped, and we can't sell residences to the north that are developed on the lots, that said, okay, well, we have to do something, and that's why we're here, and that's why we're making the request.
And to be totally clear on the zoning and the railroad spur question, we do have areas that have industrial zoning in town now that have railroad spurs into the development. There is a higher level railroad terminal zoning, which is what you find over in Center Point with the rail yard. I don't think that's what's being proposed here.
No, that's not what this is, and there's not access for truck drivers to come and to go to the Center Point rail yard. There's no access between our property and theirs, and the railroad spur is not going to give access. It's not a terminal. It's not.
It's not a terminal. I'm just wondering if it's higher than I-1.
We currently have I-1 zoning in areas that have railroad spurs.
No, to my knowledge, it isn't. It's I-1. And what would happen too is it's a PUD, so if there is a spur, suggested, then what can happen is not only would the traffic studies be done, but you could do noise studies and provide mitigation under that. So I believe, I'm not sure if you have a noise ordinance, but there's noise ordinances that would, that I've worked with in Lockport that say that the decibel level at the property line can't be any louder than this, so that, you build berms, you have no idle zones if there are trucks. Yeah, so really, all that, though, can't be done until you actually say, well, here's a user, and here's what we propose to do, and then you address all those items. So right now, all we're trying to do is, well, everything else got zoned I-1, we're sandwiched in between the I-1. We're asking for the I-1 so that we can market it and maybe bring back a viable user that will actually develop the property with a use.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to entertain a motion at this time that this project be on hold until the city hires a full-time city manager, since there's no concept and no builder in the process of building anything here.
Do you make a motion?
Yes, I make a motion to put the project on hold until, up until the full-time city manager is hired.
Well,
Can you put that condition on?
no.
You can put the condition on.
Oh, you'd have to make a motion to deny or approve,
Well, I think you make a motion to table.
or table.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to table it then. Table this until a full-time city manager is hired.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Crompton?
No.
Ms. Biding?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mr. Orlando?
Aye.
Mr. Rousseau-Ellis?
No.
No.
Yeah, no.
Mr. Cox?
No.
Mr. Kella?
Aye. So what's the vote?
So it's 4 ayes and 3 nays.
Okay. 4-3 to table. 4 ayes, 3 nays to table.
Perhaps a legal point, is there a date that it's tabled to? I don't think you can just table indefinitely.
Yeah,
When does it
can we
come
put
up
a
again?
condition on that, or do we just leave it to table it to next meeting?
No, I made, the motion I made was until city manager is hired. We don't have a city manager as
You
of
gotta set
now.
a definite date for a tabling. You can't do it indefinitely. And it can't be contingent upon another event either.
So
So
it would have to be upon the next meeting.
I don't think we'll have a city manager by next.
Well, then we could choose to table it
Okay,
then.
until after January, because that's when the city manager is coming into effect. Would that be okay?
So, Mr.
Chris,
Regis?
would a,
Can we clarify on that, Regis?
yeah, would a 2-month, 3-month timeline,
Do you have the date set for the meetings that far out?
we do.
Then pick whatever date is out there.
Okay, so then do the January, is that?
No, let's, well, the city manager is going to probably be installed in January. Let's give it till at least
Well,
March.
just a point of
Why can't
clarification.
we go till March?
We're not sure when a city manager would be appointed. We currently have an interim city manager.
Well, I think we should have a full-time city manager. This is just interim, as of right now. You said we still have open dates, we still have dates scheduled for the planning commission. That would be next year. So why can't we set a date in March?
Can I ask the city manager or the city attorney, is our vote void because we did a condition that is not valid?
Yes.
So that we would have to vote again with a specific date.
Okay.
So you can make a motion with a specific date, and then we can vote.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we table this until March of 2019, when the city manager will be in effect. Full-time city manager will be in effect.
Yeah, we can't make that condition, we have to.
We just got done telling me to set a
Well, you can
date.
do a date, but you can't, we don't know if the city manager is gonna be.
Correct. We don't know if.
Okay, then we'll eliminate the city manager, is that what you want to do? Or just set it until March of 2017? We can table it.
Yeah, that's too far,
I think that's personally too far away. I think that we need to, I think even if we table it to the next meeting, that gives us an opportunity to regroup. We might, who knows what happens till then if we decide to table it again, we can then table it again. Because we do not know when a city manager, we can hypothetically say one's gonna be in March, January, February, we don't know. And if that's important to you, that at least gives us the opportunity to vote.
I feel that there's a lot of unanswered questions there, and since there's no.
I agree.
This is just a concept plan, okay? And there's no builder and there's no buyer involved yet, that we can go forward to wait until we have a city manager in place.
You can make a motion with any date you want.
Okay, what day would you suggest then?
I'd be making the motion then, make a motion.
I'll make the motion. You give me the date and I'll make the motion.
Do it for the next meeting.
I think we should do it to the next meeting.
November.
That we then get the opportunity to table again, if we need to. We don't know, like, if the city manager is important, we don't know when that's gonna happen.
Well, all these people.
Mr. Jackson, can we make it till at least January?
Then you can make a motion for that and then we can vote. I think
Yeah, would be acceptable?
17th.
January 17th is the, January meeting.
January what?
17th. So you can make a
Okay.
motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we table this until January 17th, 2019.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Crompton?
Nay.
Ms. Fide?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mr. Orlando?
Aye.
Mr. Roosevelt?
Nay.
Mr. Cox?
No.
Mr. Kella?
Aye.
Same 4 and 3.
Okay, so
Thank you very much, Lynn.
4 to 3 to table to January 17th.
Okay, is that everything, or?
No, we've got a few more items on the agenda.
Thank you.
I'll let the room clear.
You're welcome.
They talk all about the property value, but they're forgetting that we're going to lose in.
Yeah, I know. You're welcome.
Thank you for that.
He never got back to me. No. He said, at first he said lunch. And then I said, well, no, you're going to be jammed up because he told me he had the drywallers coming in. And I said, well, no, let's just hold off until after work. That way we can do drinks. You don't have to worry about your home project. But he didn't say yay or nay.
So what do you think?
Just fine. Okay, Mr. Chairman, if we could get back to the agenda.
All right.
Our next item on the agenda is new business, no public hearing. And we do have one item. Staff would like to provide an update on the newly proposed citywide comprehensive plan.
What's this thing? I got no paperwork.
Planning Director. Just a real brief update. Open up a memo that I had sent out to the, a couple weeks ago to the Land Use Committee, and I'm sorry I didn't get that in your packet, but I'm just gonna summarize it. It's pretty brief. The current fiscal year budget includes funding for a new citywide comprehensive plan. And within the next, currently, I should say, the city has an RFQ, a request for qualifications out to hire a consulting firm. We have a very small planning staff, 3 people. So there's no way we could do this in-house. So we are gonna go out and have a consulting firm help us put together a new citywide comprehensive plan. We haven't done one for the whole city since 1959. We've done a downtown plan a couple of years ago. We did the 2007 plan for the south side that was referenced this afternoon. We've done the Kendall County plan. We don't have a plan that holistically covers every corner of the city, and that's problematic because when zoning cases come before you, you may recall last year we had a case on Plainfield Road, and there was a question, should it be residential, should it be commercial? So we think this is a good effort to spend some money, hire a really good firm. We're going to go through a vetting process internally with staff where we evaluate all these firms. There's going to be a lot of interest in doing a plan for the city. So we're going to go through two phases. We're going to go through an RFQ, and next Thursday, the 25th, is the deadline for firms to give us their resumes, their qualifications, and then we're going to selectively invite those top firms after we do the scoring to give us a proposal, or what we call an RFP. And so the RFP will get into the details of what kind of a plan the city will have. I'm not going to mention all the planning efforts that were done in the past. Those are kind of all listed on our city webpage. But the new plan is going to focus on land use, on transportation, economic development, neighborhood integrity, and sustainability. And due to high population growth in certain areas of the city, the associated development pattern has further underscored the east versus west side dichotomy, and as we heard today, the south side as well. And so there's a need to maintain momentum in the downtown, obviously. We're gonna kind of, some of the same things that the plan is gonna, that the RFQ highlights are the fiscal challenges of the city, aging infrastructure, aging building stock in the historic core, and limited resources for low-income areas, the need for a range of housing types and density to suit all stages of life in the city, and the need to retain residents and provide sufficient workforce housing for a growing employment base. The other issues that we highlighted were the impacts from the regional imbalance of subsidized housing, the commercial corridor revitalization, downtown investment, quality employment opportunities, the increase of truck traffic and vehicular traffic and the impact it's having on our local and regional roads, the negative perception of the community and the schools, and improving Joliet as a brand. Civic engagement relative to geographic location within the city, lack of citywide neighborhood organizational capacity, undeveloped annexed territory, and outdated zoning regulations. So these are a range of issues that are going to be addressed through the plan. And the plan is a blueprint, it's not etched in stone. The plan doesn't say that you have to do a certain thing, but it's gonna give you a guide, it's gonna give developers a guide, it's gonna give the residents an understanding of what areas of the city are ripe for residential and what areas are ripe for industrial or commercial development. And so we wanted to provide this to you as a recommendation. The Plan Commission is going to be an integral part of this process. We're just now at the beginning phase of getting somebody on board. It's going to take a few months to do that, sign the contract, but I'll be coming back to you, giving you regular updates. And we want once we hire the consultant to sit down with you, it's going to be probably a special Plan Commission meeting where we don't have any cases, where we can, and maybe several over the next 18 months to get your input as the Plan Commission for the city and help us craft this document, which will be a guide, a blueprint for the future. So, thank you.
We already do have some plans in existence now, because right in the paperwork that they've given us, there was germane to what we were just talking about here, a zoning request. It's contrary to the existing Southside Comprehensive Plan that was just, passed in March of 2007. And if that wasn't changed, it's still in effect.
It is, and we point that out in all of our staff reports. So, for example, the Smith Farm was brought up this evening. The planning staff always makes the recommendation to you to follow your plan or our plan. You're able to make a recommendation to the council, and the council gets to make, mayor and council get to make the final decision. That's just how it works. The planning process, though, we've got these outdated plans. And so the idea is that we have one document, so we don't have multiple documents. We have one document that either references some of the things that are happening, like the water study that's going on right now. We're talking about changes made possibly to I-80. This is a document that everybody, it's comprehensive, so it covers land use, transportation, utilities, You know, how do we plan for the 3,000 acres to the far west that were annexed? And right now, there's not a lot of housing, you know, going on in that area. Those are the questions that the consultant isn't gonna come in and give the answers. The consultant is gonna facilitate a process, a conversation with the community. We see this as multiple public forums, different areas of the city, getting feedback, you know, Post-it notes on the wall, gathering comments. The consultant will gather all that, come back, and then in their professional recommendation, working with staff, working with the Plan Commission, working with the new city manager, will craft a document that can be, you know, vetted and evaluated through a public hearing process, and then adopted ultimately as the goal, as a policy document. Look forward to working with all of you on the plan. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Next item on our agenda is a study session. We have no items for the study session. Under old or new business, not for final action or recommendation, staff has no items there. Next item is for public comments. This is for anyone wanting to speak regarding non-agenda items. They are allowed a maximum of 4 minutes.
I guess they're not gonna talk. Oh.
Good evening. My name is Frank Seepon, 1425 Spencer Road, Joliet Township. I'm not accustomed to speaking to a big audience, but I just couldn't stay back and listen to the speaker before me. He's claiming they're gonna have overall picture of what Joliet's gonna look like for the next lifetime. So what the heck are we doing here now? We should have that done before we put the horse before the cart. We should stop all development until the comprehensive plan is approved. But it's gonna come down to, well, we'll fix the AD in 20 years. So, thank you. I hate to get mad every time I speak, but thanks for the 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Call the roll. Or you wanna?
Mr. Cox?
Aye.
Mr. Crompton?
Aye.
Ms. Fiding?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mr. Orlando?
Aye.
Mr. Roosevelt?
Aye.
Mr. Kella?
Aye.